What's up, party people? It's Keys Dan with RadioWhat.com, DJLittleRock.com, coming to you live and in living color from the Radio What studios. And this is my podcast, What Makes You Smarter? It's an extension of the RadioWhat.com internet radio station that I've been running for quite some time. And if you need DJ services, where do you go? DJLittleRock.com. Check availability and get a free price quote. And maybe you can have me at your next event, playing for you on the digital wheels of steel. Yes, I play music for people. And I do karaoke shows. If you'd like to tell your story, I encourage you to check out my other podcast, What Makes You Famous. Use the hashtag What Makes You Famous to find it everywhere. Let's learn together on What Makes You Smarter. Now, on with the show. Today on the program, 10 things you need to know today for Monday, February 17th, 2020. 10 things you need to know today. Number 1, 1,100 ex-Justice Department officials call for Barr's resignation. More than 1,100 former Justice Department officials signed a letter released Sunday calling for Attorney General William Barr to resign. The open letter came days after Barr's Justice Department overruled prosecutors and reduced a sentencing recommendation for President Trump's longtime confidant, Roger Stone, who was convicted of lying to Congress and witness tampering. The DOJ officials who signed the letter said Barr was, quote, doing the president's personal bidding, end quote. Quote, it is unheard of for the department's top leaders to overrule lying prosecutors who are following established policies in order to give preferential treatment to a close associate of the president, as Attorney General Barr did in the Stone case, end quote, wrote the DOJ officials who served in Democratic and Republican administrations alike. Barr has said Trump did not influence the decision to push for a lighter sentence for Stone. This is according to Time. Number 2, 14 U.S. cruise ship evacuees test positive for coronavirus. 2 planes left Japan early Monday carrying 328 Americans who spent 2 weeks quarantined on the Diamond Princess cruise ship due to a coronavirus outbreak on board. 14 of the American passengers were confirmed to have been infected with the flu-like virus. There were about 400 Americans on the ship, and at least 40 are being treated in Japan after being diagnosed with coronavirus. The U.S. government chartered the aircraft to bring home the U.S. citizens who weren't believed to have been infected. They will remain under a 14-day quarantine at U.S. military bases. Japanese authorities announced Sunday that the number of confirmed infections on the ship had risen by 70 to 355. The ship has the largest cluster of cases outside China, where the coronavirus outbreak is concentrated. This is according to BBC News and The Washington Post. Number 3, coronavirus spread continues, but China sees good signs. Chinese authorities reported early Monday that there were about 100 new deaths from coronavirus, the lowest daily count since February 11th. The flu-like virus has now killed more than 1,700 people. The number of confirmed infections in Hubei province, where the outbreak is centered, rose on Monday after falling for 2 straight days. Authorities in Hubei imposed tough new restrictions on movement as they continued to step up efforts to contain the spread of the outbreak. The number of new cases outside Hubei province fell for the 13th consecutive day. Quote, these are all extremely good signs that show our prevention work is very effective, end quote. National Health Commission official Gu Yanhong said. This is according to Reuters and the Associated Press. Number 4, Sanders accuses Bloomberg of trying to buy Democratic nomination. Ahead of the Nevada caucuses, several Democratic presidential candidates focused criticism on former New York City Mayor Mike Bloomberg, who is running for the party's nomination but not contesting the state. Quote, he thinks he can buy this election, end quote, Senator Bernie Sanders, Independent Vermont, said of Bloomberg, a billionaire financial news publisher. Quote, well, I have news for Mr. Bloomberg. The American people are sick and tired of billionaires buying elections, end quote. former Vice President Joe Biden, Senator Amy Klobuchar, Democrat Minnesota, and former South Bend, Indiana Mayor Pete Buttigieg also went after Bloomberg for New York City's, quote, stop and frisk, end quote, policy and his treatment of women, although Buttigieg says there's, quote, no comparison, end quote, between Bloomberg's alleged behavior and President Trump's treatment of women and people of color. This is according to the Associated Press and the Washington Post. Number 5. Buttigieg says he won't take lectures on family values from Limbaugh. Democratic presidential candidate Pete Buttigieg on Sunday responded to conservative radio host Rush Limbaugh, who recently said on his show that Americans aren't ready for a gay president. Buttigieg, the first openly gay presidential candidate, said he would not take, quote, lectures on family values from the likes of Rush Limbaugh, end quote. Limbaugh, who was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom during President Trump's State of the Union address, and voters would be turned off by seeing a, quote, 37-year-old gay guy kissing his husband on stage next to Mr. Man Donald Trump, end quote. Buttigieg said, well, I love my husband, parentheses, chasten. I'm faithful to my husband. On stage, we usually just go for a hug, but I love him very much, and I'm not going to take lectures on family values from the likes of Rush Limbaugh, end quote. This is according to USA Today. Number 6, ex-National Intelligence Director's daughter charged with murder. The daughter of former Director of National Intelligence, John Negroponte, has been charged with first-degree murder. Sophia Negroponte, 27, was accused of stabbing an acquaintance, Youssef Rasmussen, during an argument in a Maryland apartment. A third person who was in the apartment said that Negroponte and Rasmussen had been drinking and started bickering, then fighting. The witness said Negroponte took a knife out of a kitchen drawer and lunged at Rasmussen, stabbing him. The charging document said Negroponte removed the knife, yelled, quote, I'm sorry, end quote, and pleaded with Rasmussen not to die. Sophia Negroponte is one of 5 children her father and mother, Diana, adopted in Honduras, where he served as a diplomat before being appointed by then-President George W. Bush to be the nation's first intelligence director in 2005. This is according to the Washington Post. Number 7. Mississippi Capitol precarious as Pearl River floodwaters rise. Rising waters in the Pearl River in Mississippi were expected to crest Monday as the state faces what Governor Tate Reeves, Republican, described Sunday as a, quote, precarious situation that can turn at any moment, end quote. Severe flooding had already forced people to evacuate homes in many neighborhoods in and around the capital city of Jackson. People in one neighborhood paddled canoes, kayaks, and small fishing boats to check on their homes. The National Weather Service on Sunday said it expected the river to crest at 37.5 feet, slightly lower than the previous estimate of 38 feet. The Pearl's highest crest ever recorded was 43.2 feet in April 1979, and its second highest was 39.6 feet in May 1983. This is according to the Associated Press. Number 8. Rouhani. U.S. sanctions against Iran have failed. Iranian President Hassan Rouhani said Sunday that the Trump administration's, quote, maximum pressure, end quote, policy against his country was not working. Quote, of course, sanctions naturally create some problems, but they will not yield any results for the enemies, end quote. Rouhani told state media, quote, maximum pressure has failed. We are in a better situation in the region now, end quote. Rouhani said he would be willing to enter negotiations with the U.S. if it rejoins Tehran's nuclear deal with world powers and drops the sanctions President Trump imposed after withdrawing from the deal. Rouhani also said he didn't believe Trump wanted a war with Iran, saying it would, quote, ruin, end quote, his chances to win re-election in November. This is according to USA Today. Number 9, UK hit with second hurricane force February storm. Storm Dennis battered the United Kingdom with hurricane force winds on Sunday. Dennis, the second strongest non-tropical storm on record in the North Atlantic Ocean, whipped up waves as high as 80 feet west of the UK. It drenched South Wales with more than 5 inches of rain, an inch more than the area normally gets in February. Flooding from the storm forced evacuations and cut off access to some communities. The storm came just a week after another severe bomb cyclone, Storm Sierra, hit Britain, leaving the ground saturated and worsening the flooding from Dennis. This is according to the Washington Post. Number 10, Trump takes a lap at Daytona 500. President Trump took a lap around the Daytona 500 racetrack in his presidential limousine after Air Force One did a flyby, drawing cheers from fans gathered for the prestigious NASCAR race. Trump kicked off the race with the traditional announcement to drivers of, quote, "Gentlemen, start your engines," end quote. Trump re-election campaign had planned to fly an aerial banner near the speedway and a TV ad during the Fox broadcast, but the race was postponed until Monday due to rain after the drivers ran just 20 of its 200 laps. Trump spent the weekend at his resort in Palm Beach, now his official primary residence, before going to Daytona. He plans a series of fundraising events and political rallies in western states this week. This is according to Reuters. That's 10 things you need to know today for Monday, February 17th, 2020. This has been What Makes You Smarter. Thank you for listening. If you'd like to tell your story, I encourage you to check out my other podcast, What Makes You Famous. Find it everywhere using the hashtag What Makes You Famous. That's it for me. It's Keys Dan, RadioWhat.com, DJLittleRock.com. Peace. I'm out of here. If you like what you hear, I encourage you to follow What Makes You Smarter on social media. Find it on Facebook at What Makes You Smarter, Instagram at What Makes You Smarter, Twitter at SmarterWhat, and YouTube, username Keys Dan. Leave What Makes You Smarter podcast a review and subscribe. Listen to What Makes You Smarter podcast on Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, and Podcast Addict. My personal favorite, learn with me on my podcast, What Makes You Smarter. And if you'd like to tell your story, I encourage you to check out my other podcast, What Makes You Famous. Find it everywhere using the hashtag What Makes You Famous. Call 501-470-6386 and leave a message to set up a time for What Makes You Famous. Support What Makes You Smarter podcast using the PayPal, paypal.me/Keys Dan. Email info@radiowhat.com. What Makes You Smarter is a production of Keys Dan Enterprises Incorporated at keysdan.com. Thank you for listening. Thank you for listening. Thank you for